creation of national supervisory bodies to oversight the auditing profession was justified by the need for the state to counter the unacceptable practice in poorly conducted audits, and of course, to restore and increase the confidence in the profession. But the most important question for me is, do you think that this already is producing good results, or more specifically, do you think, how do you think to measure the anticipated positive results of this state oversighting over professional accountants? How to measure the results, if there are positive results?
If as an auditor, you know there's a chance that somebody will come along after you have finished the audit and try and second guess your judgments, and that they have power over you, do you do a better job? Or would you do exactly the same job if nobody was to come and look at your completed audit file? In my view, knowing that somebody might come along and look at my file just makes me stop before I sign the audit report and say, is everything that I should have done been done? Is it there in this file, or is it in my head, which is part of the big problem on small audits? A lot of it is between here, because I know what I did and I did it myself, and I don't need to write it down anywhere because I'm happy that I've done a good job and I'm a professional auditor. The evidence from some of the countries that have been having independent oversight is that the result of having independent oversight has improved audit quality. It has definitely improved audit quality. How did it do that? Well, first of all, in certainly the larger audit firms, if you know that the regulator in your country is going to come and look at a selection of your audit files every year or every 3 years or every 4 years, it just makes good business sense to have an internal quality review process before you even let this go past the front door. So the largest firms that can afford the investment have developed internal quality reviews of their own. It goes back to our earlier discussion. Did the partner have enough experience? Was the partner too close to management? Was the partner driven by pressures to complete the audit by Friday? Or did the partner simply miss it? Did the partner simply not ask the right questions? Did the partner rely too much on what they were told by management, and they didn't then go back and find independent evidence to support management's statement? What I find interesting and worrying, truly worrying, is that even in countries that have this regulation, there are still big mistakes. There are still big mistakes. Obviously, being sure about the clients is important. Being sure about the type of people that you have as clients, and being sure that they are not intentionally trying to mislead you, the auditor. So acceptance and continuation with clients is a big question that firms around the world are beginning to have to wrestle with. And we can see firms that say to a client, I'm sorry, but I don't want to do your audit next year. I'm withdrawing from being your auditor. And what we do as a profession that we do very badly, is that because that firm withdraws from the auditor, why is it that somebody else will take that same client on? There's a problem there. That's why that original audit firm resigned. And yet the client has no problem in finding another audit firm who will say, yes, I'll do your audit next year. Do we think that I can do a better audit than the previous auditor did? Do we think that I can do an audit that doesn't require as much judgment? Or do we think that I'm a better auditor than the person that did it last year? Not sure I know the answer, but we are sometimes guilty of being unhelpful in maintaining audit quality, because it seems to be no problem for firms who have auditors resign for them to find another audit firm to take on the work. That's because we're all self-employed professionals trying to make a living, and we think we can do it better than the people before.
Yes, maybe most of the problems concerning the quality of audit are based on the complicated questions concerning professional ethics, ethics at all.
Yes.
Is it possible in the future, or is this a lazy dream, our profession to come back to self-regulation? Is it possible? Only self-regulation was like it was in the past.
I think there is no way back. I think that around the world, the independent state regulation is now accepted and expected. It's expected in all the European countries by mandate. It's expected in all of the other developed countries. But I think that as much as we think auditors have to do a better job, regulators have to do a better job as well. I mentioned to you earlier, for example, think about being a surgeon operating on a patient on a table, or think about being an airline pilot flying an airplane. Each of those professions, doctors and airline pilots, have very detailed manuals about what you do and how you do it. But learning the manual isn't enough. You need experience, and you need some practical knowledge of how you operate on a person or fly an airplane. And if the inspector that is coming to test you on the work that you've done has never operated on a patient or has never flown an airplane, they really cannot be expected to understand how the audit is carried out by the auditor. So I think that the experience in most countries where it is most successful is that the state regulator has hired retired auditors with plenty of experience who understand the challenges, understand the pressures, understand the judgments that are necessary in an audit, and can understand how those things happen in real time. If you had never been a surgeon and you had just looked at how you operate and remove somebody's gallbladder on the operating table, to look at it and say this operation took 15 minutes or 3 hours doesn't mean anything. You need to understand why it took 15 minutes or why it took 3 hours, and you need to be able to have done those operations yourself in order to make sense of what really happened in this particular operation. And the same thing applies in an audit. I really, really believe that the auditors have to have had the inspectors have to have had some audit experience to understand the questions that were being asked, why that question was not asked, why that question was asked 2 different times from 2 different people. All of those things make the oversight effective. And without that effective questioning by understanding, sensible inspectors who have experience in the industry, then the people being inspected will have little respect for the inspections. You can't be expected to be happy about being inspected by someone whose career has been a professional footballer and now they become an inspector of audit files. I'm using crazy examples here, but if I'm challenged as an auditor, I want to be challenged by someone that has done audits, that understands the challenges and the pressures that I was under doing my audit in that Thursday afternoon before the Friday deadline. So Can we go back to self-regulation? No, because self-regulation did not work. It did not work in most countries of the world. It was a club that allowed you in and never kicked you out. We now have a situation where the club can kick you out. It can prevent you from doing audits of publicly listed entities forever. It can kick you out of the profession altogether. I don't see us ever going back. What I think we have to do is work better between the regulator and the profession so that we don't overlap, but we work in conjunction, in connection with each other, recognizing again, the regulator's job is to be checking what the auditor has done and not just accepting it. But the auditor's job is to know that that regulation is reasonable and fair, and that the regulator will understand what's happening and what has happened in the file, and will accept that if I have not physically attended a stock taking at this client, because I did these other 10 tests that would give me the same level of comfort, then the fact that I haven't attended a physical stock taking shouldn't be negative. It should be understandable because of the things that I did do. So that how I operated to meet the standards was not to take stock or attend the physical stock taking, but was to do these other 10 things that gave me the same level of comfort. In other words, how I apply judgment in meeting the audit standards has to be the same sort of judgment that the inspectors use. And the inspectors cannot simply have a checklist of things. Do I see evidence in the file of this and this and this and this and this?
Most of the people in the commission in Bulgaria for public oversight of public accountants are not auditors, and the law is prepared in such a way that these people could become inspectors, although they have no any previous practice in auditing. Could you please advise us how to solve this problem properly? How to battle, how to fight with the state to confirm the state, the legislation, that the people in the commission, the inspectors, have to have a previous experience in auditing?
I think I would use the same arguments that I've used before. If someone is to be given a license to fly the public on airplanes, what should be the qualification of the person that provides the license, issues the license, or checks that the pilot is still current 5 years after graduating from flying school? Should it be a doctor, or should it be someone that's actually flown an airplane? If you have to be licensed to drive a big truck in Bulgaria, who do you want to issue those licenses? Someone who's never driven a truck and that never had to drive one round a corner in a tight road, or someone who has done that and therefore can observe how the trainee driver is performing the task? And I think you'd say that it makes a lot of sense. While the government might write the rules on what they need to test for the airline pilot to make sure that the airline pilot is still current, or that the lorry truck driver is still current, they might write those rules, but the people that ask the questions have to know what flying a plane feels like and what happens when an engine stops or an emergency light comes on. I don't know how how anybody does this with government, in the sense of you can't sort of say the rule is stupid. I think the answer has to be, it's a good rule, we accept that it's a good rule that we should have inspections, but here are some arguments why the inspector should have these qualifications. And obviously the inspector never goes back to their old audit firm and inspects files in their old audit firm. And all of the other inspectorates around the world, if you were with Ernst & Young and you join as a retired partner, you join the inspectorate in a particular country, the state inspector or the independent inspector, you never go and audit or review Ernst & Young files. So you've got to have that set of independence rules within the state inspectorate. But I think if you talk to the Australians, for example, who have the Australian Securities and Investment Commission runs the inspectors program. They have qualified inspectors on that program with quite clear rules about which clients they can look at or which firms they can go to or not go to. And the same applies in Canada and in the United States, to my knowledge. So I think that to make the results of the state inspectors meaningful, and to actually force improvement, they have to have inspectors who have knowledge of the profession and audit of listed entities. Otherwise, the inspector program just it just sits like this, no connection. But if you're going to make it connect, then those inspectors have to have some degree of competence in our profession.
I think that we have covered everything on the list, but I'm sure that there are a lot of questions that we could speak on it in the future. Let me express my deepest gratitude to you, Mr. Silf, and thank you truly for the time and thoughts you shared with us. Thank you very much again. Thank you. And
thank you very much for inviting me to be part of your team here, and I really appreciate it. I have enjoyed it. I have to tell you, your English is superb, much better than my Bulgarian. I tell you that for sure. So thank you for the invitation.